"If you can get the twins to sleep, I'll give you the mansion," laughed the millionaire father, but the nanny. Emily Johnson entered the luxurious nursery at 3 in the morning and found a scene that shocked her deeply. The millionaire businessman, Michael Anderson, was sitting on the floor between the twins' cribs, his hair disheveled and eyes red from exhaustion. Little Ethan and Noah, just 3 years old, had been crying for 5 hours straight, their tiny faces red and swollen from distress. "If you can get them to sleep, I'll give you this entire mansion," said Michael, looking at her desperately. His voice was hoarse from trying to calm his sons. Emily thought it was the exhausted man's joke, but he grabbed a sheet of paper from the desk and quickly scribbled something, signing at the bottom. "I'm serious," he insisted, handing her the paper. "I've tried everything. 7 nannies have come through here in the last 3 weeks. None could get them to sleep through the night." The 42-year-old woman, in her impeccable white uniform and headscarf, studied the twins carefully. They had light blonde hair like their father and rosy cheeks from crying. What caught her attention most were their tiny fists clenched tightly, as if guarding something precious. "How long have they been like this?" asked Emily, slowly approaching Ethan, who was crying the hardest. 3 weeks, replied Michael, running his hands over his face. "Ever since their mother, since she left." There was something in the way he said "left" that put Emily on alert. It didn't sound like an ordinary work trip. When she tried to touch Ethan's clenched fist, the boy screamed even louder, pulling away as if protecting a treasure. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing, Mrs. Wilson, the elderly housekeeper of the mansion, appeared at the door with a worried expression. She was a 68-year-old woman who had worked for the family for nearly 2 decades. "How are the little ones?" she whispered. "The same," sighed Michael. "Mrs. Wilson, can you explain to Emily about the fabric they won't let go of?" The housekeeper hesitated for a moment, exchanging a strange look with her employer. There was something unspoken between them, a secret hanging in the air. "They're pieces of Mrs. Jessica's dress," Mrs. Wilson finally said. "They took them when she left." Emily noticed Noah was also clutching a small piece of light blue fabric. They were silk scraps, clearly from an expensive, delicate garment. The boys pressed them to their chests as if they were talismans that could bring their mother back. "And when is Mrs. Jessica coming back?" asked Emily, but both Michael and Mrs. Wilson looked away. She decided to focus on her career abroad," Michael said quickly. "Got an offer she couldn't refuse in London, but something was off about the story." Emily knew the behavior of children abandoned by their parents well, and this had all the signs of a traumatic, poorly explained separation. "Can I try something?" she asked, walking over to an old armchair near the window. Emily began to sing a lullaby her own grandmother had taught her as a child back in rural Montana. It was a soft, comforting melody about mothers who had to travel, but left their love in every star in the sky for their children to find. For the first time in hours, Ethan and Noah stopped crying for a few seconds. Their little blue eyes turned to her curiously, as if recognizing something familiar in her voice. But when she stopped singing, the crying returned even louder. "That was incredible," murmured Michael. "They never stop crying when someone tries to calm them down. There's something they recognize in the song," said Emily Johnson thoughtfully. "Did Mrs. Jessica used to sing to them?" Mrs. Wilson and Michael Anderson exchanged another tense glance. "She sang a lot," Mrs. Wilson said quietly. "She had a beautiful voice. The boys loved nap time with her." Emily decided to stay up all night observing the twins. There were mysteries in that house that needed to be unraveled if she truly wanted to help those children. At 5 in the morning, when she finally managed to get Ethan and Noah to sleep for 2 straight hours, she began discreetly exploring the mansion. The house was enormous, located in one of the most upscale neighborhoods of New York City. It had 3 floors, extensive gardens and decor that blended modernity with antique family pieces. But what caught Emily's attention the most was how quickly the feminine presence had been erased from the rooms. There were no photos of Jessica anywhere in the house. Her personal belongings seemed to have vanished completely, and even the master bedroom was arranged as if only one person lived there. It was as if someone had made a point of eliminating any memory of the woman. "Mrs. Wilson," Emily called when she found the housekeeper preparing breakfast. "Can I ask a delicate question?" The elderly woman stopped stirring the eggs and looked at her cautiously. "Depends on the question, dear. What really happened to Mrs. Jessica? Because this story about a career abroad isn't convincing anyone." Mrs. Wilson sighed deeply and sank heavily into a kitchen chair, her eyes filled with restrained tears. "Miss Jessica didn't leave of her own free will," she said quietly, glancing around to make sure Michael wasn't nearby. "She was, let's say, encouraged to leave." Encouraged by whom? By Michael's family, especially his mother, Mrs. Barbara. They never accepted that he married a woman from a humble background. Emily felt a chill in her stomach. She was beginning to understand why the twins were in so much distress. And Michael? Did he agree to this? Michael is a good man, but weak when it comes to family. He's always done whatever his mother told him. When business started going downhill last year, Mrs. Barbara convinced him that Jessica was a burden, that he needed to focus only on work. Mrs. Wilson wiped her eyes with her apron and continued. They offered her money to leave and never come back. They told her she had no claim to anything from the company, that the marriage had been a mistake. The poor thing was pregnant when they got married, so they never bothered to legally formalize the union. And she took the money? She had no choice. They threatened to take the boys from her if she stayed. They said a woman with no means couldn't raise twins in a wealthy family. But she begged to take the boys. Mrs. Wilson stopped talking when they heard footsteps on the stairs. Michael appeared in the kitchen, still in his pajamas, with deep bags under his eyes and messy hair. "How are they?" he asked anxiously. "Finally asleep," Emily replied. "But, Mr. Anderson, we need to talk about a few things. Later. Right now I need to handle some urgent business matters." And he hurried out, leaving Emily and Mrs. Wilson alone again. "See?" Mrs. Wilson said, shaking her head. "He always runs away when the topic is family. That's why the boys are like this. They feel like they lost their mother and that their father isn't really there." That afternoon, while the twins napped restlessly, Emily decided to look for clues about Jessica. In the closet of the master bedroom, hidden behind Michael's expensive suits, she found a small pink suitcase with women's clothes. They weren't old clothes like Michael had claimed. The tag showed recent purchases, some still with price stickers. There were also some personal items, a half-used perfume, simple but pretty costume jewelry, and a notebook with notes. Emily opened the notebook carefully. The last entries were from 3 weeks ago, exactly when the twins' problems began. There were scheduled doctor's appointments, reminders about the children's vaccines, and on the last filled page, an address hastily scribbled. It was an address in Brooklyn, on the outskirts of New York City. Below it read, "Aunt Betty's house, in case of need." When Ethan and Noah woke up, they were more restless than ever. They were searching for something in their cribs, rummaging through the sheets and crying inconsolably. Emily realized they were looking for the little fabric scraps they had lost during their sleep. "Calm down, my darlings," she said, searching for the scraps around the room. "Aunt Emily will find them." When she found the fabrics under Noah's crib, something caught her attention. One of the pieces had a faint pink lipstick stain, as if someone had kissed it recently. "Mrs. Wilson," she called the housekeeper. "Did Jessica wear pink lipstick?" "Always," replied Mrs. Wilson, entering the room. It was her favorite color. She said it reminded her of the flowers her mother planted in the backyard when she was little. That night, after Michael left for yet another late-night business meeting, Emily made a risky decision. She took the address from the notebook and decided to look for Jessica. "Mrs. Wilson, I need to go out for a few hours. Can you watch the boys?" "Of course, dear. But where are you going at this hour?" "To find their mother." Aunt Betty's house was in a modest but well-kept housing complex in Brooklyn. Emily took 2 buses to get there, carrying one of the fabric scraps the twins loved so much in her purse. It was almost midnight when she knocked on the door. A grey-haired woman with a kind expression answered, wearing a floral robe. "Sorry for the hour, Mrs. Betty. My name is Emily. I'm the nanny for the twins Ethan and Noah. Do you know Jessica Anderson?" The woman's face lit up but also filled with worry. "Jessica, my dear niece. Come in, come in. How are my boys?" The house was small but cozy. In the living room, Emily found Jessica asleep on the couch, clutching a photo of her children. She was a beautiful woman around 30, with brown hair and a face marked by sorrow. "Jessica," Betty called softly. "Wake up, dear. There's a young woman here who takes care of your boys." Jessica woke up startled, and upon seeing Emily, she began to cry. "How are they? Please tell me they're okay. I haven't slept in 3 weeks thinking about them." "They're suffering terribly," Emily said honestly. "They can't sleep. They won't stop crying. They miss you." "I want to go back," Jessica sobbed. "Every day away from them is hell. But they threatened me. They said if I came back, they'd prove in court that I'm an unfit mother." Betty sat beside her niece and hugged her. "Tell her what really happened, Jessica." And then Emily heard a story that left her outraged. Jessica wasn't just a woman from a humble background who had married a wealthy man. She had a degree in education, worked at a public school, and dreamed of opening a childcare center for underprivileged children. When she became pregnant with the twins, Michael was going through a rough patch in his business. His mother, Barbara, a cold and prejudiced woman, convinced him that Jessica had only gotten pregnant to secure her financial future. "She never gave me a chance," Jessica said. "From day one, she treated me like a gold digger. When the boys were born, she barely looked at them, said they didn't look like the Anderson family." Things got worse when Michael started working late to save the company. Jessica was left alone with the babies in the mansion, facing constant scorn from her mother-in-law and brothers-in-law. "I endured everything because I loved Michael and my children," she said, wiping away tears. "But 3 weeks ago, I discovered something terrible." "What was it?" "The company wasn't bankrupt. It was a lie to push me away. Barbara wanted Michael to marry the daughter of an important business partner. She thought if she made me believe there was no money, I'd leave on my own." Emily was shocked by the cruelty of that family. "And did Michael know about this?" "I don't know," Jessica sighed. "He was so stressed with work that he believed everything his mother said. When I found out the truth and confronted Barbara, she gave me an ultimatum. Either I left quietly, or she'd make my life hell." "And you left?" "I had to. She threatened to say I was unstable, that I hit the children. She claimed she had the influence to make me lose custody of the boys. I was just a public school teacher. I couldn't fight their power." Betty shook her head sadly. "My niece has been wasting away since she got here. She cries day and night for her children." "But didn't you try to contact Michael?" "I did," Jessica said. "I called several times, but he never answered. Mrs. Wilson told me he's been very busy with the company." Emily realized Michael probably didn't even know Jessica was trying to reach him. Barbara must have been intercepting the calls. "Jessica, I need to tell you something. Michael offered to give me the mansion if I could get the boys to sleep. He's desperate." "He offered what?" Jessica's eyes widened. "The mansion. He even drew up a signed document." "But the mansion isn't his alone," Betty said thoughtfully. "If they're legally married—" "We're not," Jessica explained. "We only had a religious ceremony. With the pregnancy happening so fast, we never made it official at the courthouse." Emily had an idea. "Jessica, do you want your children back? More than anything in this world. Then let's fight for them, but I'll need your help to do it the right way." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. Back at the mansion, Emily found Michael pacing the garden at 2 in the morning. He was on the phone, clearly agitated. "Mum, I can't take seeing my kids like this anymore," he said. "They cry all the time, they don't sleep, they don't eat properly. I need to do something." Emily hid behind a tree to listen. "No, Mom, I don't want to hear about boarding school. They're 3 years old." Michael raised his voice. "And stop saying it's Jessica's fault. She was always an excellent mother." There was a long pause in the conversation. You did what? Michael shouted. What do you mean you blocked her calls? Mum, you have no right to decide that. Emily realized Michael was finally uncovering his mother's manipulations. No, Mom. Enough. I'm tired of you controlling my life. I'm going to find Jessica, and we'll talk like adults. When Michael hung up, Emily approached. Mr. Anderson? He turned, surprised and embarrassed to have been overheard. Emily, Did you hear the conversation? Part of it. And I think I need to tell you a few things about your wife. They sat on a garden bench, and Emily shared everything she'd discovered. Michael listened with growing horror and guilt. My God, he murmured, running his hands over his face. What have I done? How could I have been so blind? You were manipulated by someone who should have protected you, Emily said gently. But there's still time to fix this. Where is she? I need to talk to her. First, we need to address one thing. The boys. They won't get better until they feel their father is truly present. Michael looked at her without understanding. I am present. I'm here every day. Being physically present is different from being emotionally present, explained Emily. When was the last time you told them a story, or sang them a song, or simply stayed in their room until they fell asleep? Michael lowered his head, ashamed. I don't know how to do those things. It was always Jessica who handled that part. I'd just pop in to say goodnight quickly. Then let's learn, starting today. That early morning, Emily taught Michael how to be a real father. She showed him how to hold his children in his arms, how to sing lullabies, how to give them a relaxing back massage. Ethan and Noah were hesitant at first, but little by little they relaxed in their father's embrace. It was as if they could feel they finally had his full attention. They're responding, Michael murmured, moved watching Noah settle into his arms. Because they sense you're truly here, said Emily. Little children need presents, not expensive toys or fancy rooms. For the first time in weeks, the twins slept for 4 hours straight. Michael stayed in their room all night, watching over them with tears in his eyes. I've been a terrible father, he said at dawn. You've been an absent father, Emily corrected, but that can change. The question is, do you really want to change? I do, more than anything. Then you'll need to make some hard decisions, starting with removing your mother's influence from your life. That morning, Michael did something he'd never done before. He called his office and said he wouldn't be coming in. He cancelled all his meetings and devoted the entire day to his children. Emily taught him how to bathe the boys, how to prepare them for meals, how to play with them in the garden. Michael discovered a world he'd lost by always being focused on work. They're so smart, he marveled, watching Ethan try to put together a simple puzzle, and I knew nothing about them. Because you never stopped to observe, said Emily. Now tell me something. Do you really want Jessica back? Michael stopped playing and looked at her seriously. I've always loved Jessica, but I let my mother convince me that love wasn't enough, that I had to think rationally about the future. What a terrible mistake. Then let's go get her. You know where she is? I do. But first you need to prepare for a very difficult conversation with your family. That afternoon, Barbara Anderson arrived at the mansion with her usual haughty demeanor. She was a 65-year-old woman, well-dressed, with an air of superiority that grated on everyone. Michael, I heard you didn't go to work today, she said, walking into the living room uninvited. I hope it's because you finally decided to sort out the situation with the children. What situation? Michael asked flatly. Well, they need professional care, maybe a boarding school or at least a live-in nanny. You can't keep wasting time on these things. These things are my children, Mother. Barbara glanced disdainfully at Ethan and Noah, who were playing quietly on the living room rug. Yes, but you have bigger responsibilities. The company, the partners, your future. By the way, Vanessa Thompson is back from London. She asked about you. Vanessa Thompson was the daughter of the partner Barbara wanted Michael to meet. A beautiful, wealthy woman, but as cold as Barbara herself. I'm not interested in Vanessa, Michael said firmly, but you should be. She'd be a suitable wife, unlike that person you got involved with. That person has a name. It's Jessica, and she's my wife." "Wife?" Barbara let out a cruel laugh. "You're not even officially married, and now that she's shown her true colors, running away at the first sign of trouble—" "Mom, stop!" Michael stood up abruptly. "I know what you did." "What are you talking about?" "I know you lied about the company situation. I know you threatened Jessica. I know you intercepted her calls." Barbara paled slightly, but kept her composure. "I protected you from a gold-digging woman. I did what any mother would do. What you did was destroy my family," Michael said, his voice trembling with suppressed anger, "and hurt my children. Your kids will be fine. Children forget quickly." "Look at them, Mom," Michael pointed to the twins. "They're not fine. They don't sleep. They don't eat properly. They're suffering because they miss the mother you drove away." Barbara looked at her grandchildren as if seeing them for the first time. Ethan was clutching a little blue piece of fabric, his eyes sad, while Noah tried to get the attention of a grandfather who never showed him affection. "They'll adjust," she said, but her voice sounded less certain. "No, Mom. They won't adjust, and neither will I. I want you to leave my house and not come back until you learn to respect my family." "Michael," Barbara was shocked, "you can't be serious." "I'm completely serious. And more, I'm going to find Jessica today and apologize. If she takes me back, we'll get married officially and you'll have to learn to live with it." Barbara stormed out of the mansion furious, but Michael felt free for the first time in years. He had broken the chains his mother had on his life. "Emily," he called, "can you take me to Jessica?" "I can, but first let me ask you something. Are you ready for the changes this will bring?" "What kind of changes?" "Jessica isn't the same woman who left here 3 weeks ago. She's hurt, distrustful. It'll take time for her to trust you again." "I know, and I accept that. And you'll have to prove you've changed. Words won't be enough. You'll need to show her and the kids that they're the priority in your life. I'm willing to do whatever it takes." The drive to Brooklyn was tense. Michael was nervous, rehearsing in his head what he'd say to Jessica. Emily brought the twins along, thinking their presence might help. When they arrived at Betty's house, it was late afternoon. The woman opened the door and was surprised to see Michael. "Oh, you've come," she said, unable to hide the suspicion in her voice. "Mrs. Wilson, I've come to apologize and bring my family home," Michael said humbly. "Your family?" Betty crossed her arms. "Funny, because for 3 weeks your family has been crying here, and you couldn't even bother to answer a phone call. I didn't know about the calls. My mother, she hid everything from me. And you didn't suspect anything? Your wife disappears, and you didn't find it strange she never called?" Michael lowered his head, ashamed. "I was blind, so blind. But now I want to make things right." Betty looked at the twins, who were fidgeting in the stroller, as if sensing their mother was near. "Jessica," she called into the house, "you have visitors." Jessica appeared at the door, drying her hands on a dish towel. When she saw Michael, her face went through a wave of emotions: surprise, pain, anger, and finally, deep sadness. "What do you want here?" she asked, avoiding his gaze. "I want to apologize," Michael said, his voice thick. "And I want you to come home." "Home?" Jessica let out a bitter laugh. "That mansion was never my home. It was just the place I lived." "Jessica, please, let me explain." "Explain what?" she interrupted, her eyes filling with tears. "How you believed I was a gold digger, how you let your mother humiliate me every day, or how you ignored every one of my calls when I begged to come back." The twins started crying in their stroller, as if sensing the tension between their parents. Jessica looked at them, and her heart broke. "My babies," she murmured, moving closer to the stroller. Ethan and Noah reached their little arms out to her, immediately recognizing their mother. Jessica picked them up, and they instantly calmed down, nestling against her like young animals finding shelter. "They miss you so much," Emily said softly. "They can't sleep without you." "And I can't live without them," Jessica sobbed, kissing her children's hair. "Jessica," Michael said, stepping forward slowly, "I know I've made terrible mistakes. I know you may never forgive me. But our children need both of us." "They need a present mother," she corrected, "because they've never had a present father." The words cut through Michael like a knife, but he knew he deserved it. "You're right. I was an absent father, but I've learned so much these past few weeks. Emily taught me how to care for them, how to really be there." "Oh, of course," Jessica said sarcastically. "You needed a nanny to learn how to be a father to your own children." "Yes," Michael admitted without defending himself. "I did, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. I also learned that my mother has been manipulating our lives for years." "And what did you do about it?" "I kicked her out, told her she can't come back until she learns to respect our family." Jessica was surprised. She never thought Michael would have the courage to stand up to his mother. "How do I know this isn't just another empty promise?" she asked. "Because I've changed, really. I haven't worked a single day since you left. I've spent all my time with the boys, learning to be the father they deserve." "One day without work doesn't prove anything," Jessica said, still skeptical. "Then give me the chance to prove it over time," Michael pleaded. "Come home. If you don't want me as your husband anymore, I'll accept that. But come back for the boys." Jessica looked at her children, now peaceful in her arms. She knew they needed her, but she also remembered how much she had suffered in that mansion. "I can't," she finally said. "I can't go back to a house where I'm not welcome, where your mother will keep humiliating me." "My mother won't interfere in our lives anymore," Michael assured her. "And if you don't feel comfortable in the mansion, we can live somewhere else." "Somewhere else. Our own house, far from my family's influence, where you can truly feel at home." Jessica fell silent for a long moment, weighing her husband's words. Betty and Emily watched expectantly. "I need time to think," she finally said. "How much time do you need?" "I don't know. A lot has happened, Michael. You hurt me deeply. I can't pretend nothing happened and just go back like it's that simple." "I understand," Michael said, though the disappointment in his eyes was clear. "But can I at least take the boys for a few days? They're suffering away from home." "They're suffering away from me," Jessica corrected. "Home was never the problem." "You're right. They're suffering without you. So, what if you came too?" "What do you mean?" "Come stay at the mansion for a few days, just for the boys. You can stay in the guest room or wherever you feel comfortable, no pressure, no demands, just so they can be close to both parents." Jessica looked at Emily, seeking her opinion. "I think it would be good for everyone," the nanny said. "The boys need stability, and you two need to talk calmly, away from the pressure of the situation." "Aunt Betty, what do you think?" Jessica asked. The elderly woman sighed. "I think you should try, dear. Not for him, but for these babies. They need their mother and father together." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us tremendously as we're just starting out. Now continuing. The next day, Jessica returned to the mansion with a small suitcase and a heart full of doubts. The house felt different, more welcoming somehow. Michael had made small changes that made the place feel less formal. The twins were overjoyed to see their mother back in their old home. They ran to her as if they hadn't seen her in years, clinging to her legs and refusing to let go. "Mommy stay?" asked Ethan in his still childish speech. "Mommy will stay for a few days," Jessica replied, kissing her son's forehead. Michael had prepared the guest room with care, placing fresh flowers and making sure everything was impeccable. When he showed the room to Jessica, she was surprised by his attention to detail. "Thank you," she said simply. "If you need anything at all, just say the word," he replied. "And Jessica, thank you for giving this a chance." The first few days were tense. Jessica took care of the children, but kept her distance from Michael. She watched closely how he interacted with the boys, looking for signs that his change was genuine. To her surprise, Michael truly had transformed. He woke up early to make breakfast for the twins, played with them in the garden, and read them bedtime stories. It was as if he were discovering fatherhood for the first time. "He really has changed," Mrs. Wilson remarked to Emily. "In 40 years of working here, I've never seen him so involved in anything other than work." "It's still too early to be sure," Emily said cautiously. "Let's see if he keeps this up once the novelty wears off." A week after Jessica's return, Barbara showed up at the mansion unannounced. She walked in as she always did, completely ignoring her daughter-in-law's presence. "Michael, we need to talk," she declared, as if nothing had happened. "Mom, I told you you weren't welcome until you changed your attitude," Michael said firmly. "What attitude? I only want what's best for you and my grandsons." "Your grandsons have a mother," Jessica said, stepping into the room with Ethan in her arms. "And that's me." Barbara looked at Jessica with disdain. "You're back. What a surprise." "Mrs. Wilson," Jessica said, taking a deep breath to stay calm. "I came back for my children, but I want to make one thing very clear. I won't tolerate any more disrespect from you." "Disrespect?" Barbara pretended to be offended. "I never—" "You've always treated me as if I weren't good enough for your family," Jessica interrupted. "You've always made me feel like an outsider in my own home. That ends now." "Michael," Barbara turned to her son, "are you going to let her talk to me like this?" "Mum, Jessica is right," Michael said, standing by his wife. "You've always been disrespectful toward her, and it's hurt not just her, but our children too." "The boys never even noticed." "Of course they noticed," Jessica said. "Children sense everything. They felt the tension, your coldness toward me. It affected the whole family atmosphere." Barbara fell silent for a moment, realizing she couldn't manipulate the situation this time. "I just wanted to protect my son," she finally said, her voice less arrogant. "Protect him from what?" Jessica asked. "From love? From happiness? From having a real family? I thought you weren't suitable." "Why? Because I don't have money? Because I'm not from a wealthy family? Because I work at a public school?" Barbara averted her gaze, unable to respond. "Mom," Michael said gently, "Jessica is an incredible woman. She's educated, hardworking, a wonderful mother. The problem was never that she wasn't suitable. The problem is you never gave her a real chance to get to know her. And because of that," Jessica continued, "your grandchildren spent 3 weeks suffering, crying every night, unable to sleep, feeling abandoned." For the first time, Barbara seemed truly affected. She looked at Ethan, who was in his mother's arms, and then at Noah, who was playing on the floor near his father. They really suffered?" she asked quietly. "Terribly," Michael replied. "They wouldn't sleep, wouldn't eat. It was heartbreaking." "I didn't know," Barbara murmured. "Because you never really cared about them," Jessica said, though without anger in her voice. "To you, they were always just troublesome grandchildren who got in the way of your plans for Michael." Barbara sank heavily into an armchair, suddenly looking older. Maybe I was wrong," she admitted with difficulty. "Not maybe, Mom," Michael said. "You were wrong, and you nearly destroyed my family because of it." "What do you want from me?" Barbara asked, defeated. "Respect," Jessica said simply. "I don't need you to like me, but I need you to respect me as Michael's wife and the mother of your grandchildren." "And you need to stop trying to control my life," Michael added. "I'm a grown man. I can make my own decisions." Barbara stayed silent for a long time, watching her grandchildren play, oblivious to the adults' tension. What if I try to change?" she asked hesitantly. "That would be a start," Jessica said, "but it'll take time. A lot has been said and done. Trust has to be rebuilt slowly." "I understand," Barbara said, standing up. I'll think about all this." After she left, Michael and Jessica were alone in the living room with the children. "Thank you," he said softly. "For what?" "For giving her a chance, too. You could have been much harsher." "She's my children's grandmother," Jessica said. "I don't want them growing up without knowing their father's family. But I won't let them be raised in a toxic environment either." That night, for the first time since she'd returned, Jessica had dinner with Michael. They talked about the kids, about future plans, carefully avoiding the subject of their relationship. "How's work?" she asked. "I've delegated a lot to my partners," Michael replied. "I realize the company won't collapse if I'm not there 12 hours a day." "And you don't miss it?" "I miss some things," he admitted. "But I miss my kids a lot more when I'm not with them. And I missed you terribly." Jessica looked away, still not ready to talk about feelings. "The boys are sleeping better," she commented, changing the subject. Because you're here, Michael said. They need you. And they need you too, Jessica admitted. You've really changed with them, Michael. They're different boys now that you've started paying real attention to them. Emily taught me a lot. But the most important thing I learned on my own, it's no use giving your children the whole world if you don't give them your presence. That same night, something unexpected happened. Noah woke up crying from a nightmare, as still happened sometimes. Jessica rushed to calm him, but Michael joined her. "Let me try," he said. Do you know what to do?" Emily taught me. Michael picked Noah up and began softly singing a lullaby. The boy gradually calmed down, nestling against his father's chest. It was the first time he'd sought comfort from his father instead of just his mother. "He trusts you now," Jessica observed, moved. "I'm learning to earn that trust," Michael said, still gently rocking Noah. When the boy fell back asleep, they stood silently by the crib for a few minutes. "Michael," Jessica finally said, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you believe so easily that I was after your money? We had known each other for 2 years before I got pregnant. You knew who I was." Michael sighed deeply. "Because my mother planted doubts in my head gradually. She said women from poor backgrounds always had ulterior motives, that you could have been deceiving me for years, waiting for the right opportunity." "And you believed her?" "Not at first. But when the company started having problems, when I was stressed and confused, her words started making sense, especially when you got pregnant right after we got engaged." "You think I got pregnant on purpose?" I did consider it," admitted Michael, ashamed. "My mother kept saying the timing was too convenient." Jessica felt a sharp pain in her chest. Knowing the man she loved had doubted her so cruelly was almost unbearable. "How could you think that of me?" she asked, tears in her eyes. "I was lost, Jessica. My mother always controlled my life, always made decisions for me. When she started questioning you, I didn't know how to think for myself." "And now? Can you think for yourself now?" "Now I know I made the biggest mistake of my life," said Michael, looking directly into her eyes. "Now I know you were always the best thing that ever happened to me, and that I almost lost everything because I was a coward." Jessica wiped her tears and took a deep breath. "Michael, I need to tell you something, and I want you to be completely honest with me. Go ahead. If your mother hadn't interfered, if the company had really gone under, would you have stayed by my side anyway?" The question caught Michael off guard. He was silent for a long moment, clearly struggling with the answer. I don't know," he finally admitted, "and that shames me deeply." "At least you're being honest," Jessica said sadly. "But I know now," Michael continued. "I know you're worth more than any money, any company, anything material. I learned that the hardest way possible." "How can I be sure it won't happen again?" Jessica asked. "How can I trust that the next time we face problems, you won't abandon me again?" "Because I've changed, Jessica, truly. I spent 3 weeks watching our children suffer, seeing what my absence caused. I never want to go through that again." "Changed how?" "I learned to question my mother. I learned to make decisions based on what I believe is right, not what she thinks. I learned that family is more important than work. I learned that you and the boys are my priority." Jessica wanted to believe him, but the wounds were still deep. "I need more time," she said, "to process all this, to see if I can truly forgive." "How much time do you need?" "I don't know. Maybe months, maybe years. I can't promise anything." "I'll wait," Michael said without hesitation. "I'll wait as long as it takes." In the following weeks, they settled into an odd but functional routine. Jessica cared for the children and gradually returned to part-time work at a nearby school. Michael drastically cut back his work hours, actively helping raise the twins. They talked about practical matters, about the boys, but avoided discussing their future. It was as if they were roommates sharing parenting duties. Emily continued working in the house, now more like a family friend than a nanny. She watched their progress with satisfaction, but knew there was still a long road ahead. One day, Mrs. Wilson approached Jessica in the kitchen. "Can I say something, dear?" "Of course, Mrs. Wilson. I've worked in this house for 20 years. I watched Michael grow up, become a man. and I've never seen him as happy as he's been these past few days. He does seem calmer now, Jessica admitted. It's not just calm, it's complete, like he finally found what he was searching for without knowing it. Mrs. Wilson, I know he hurt you deeply. I saw everything, saw how you suffered here, but I also saw how he changed. This isn't the same man who let you walk away 2 months ago. How can you be so sure? Because he chose you, Mrs. Wilson said simply. For the first time in his life, he chose what was best for him, not what his family wanted. That night, Jessica kept thinking about Mrs. Wilson's words. It was true Michael had changed drastically, but was it enough to rebuild a marriage? The answer began to come unexpectedly. The twins, who had been traumatized for months, started showing a joy she hadn't seen in a long time. They ran around the house, played in the yard, laughed easily. "They're happy," Emily observed one afternoon. "They are," Jessica agreed, "for the first time in so long." "Because they have both parents present," Emily said, "and they can tell you're both trying to make things work." "Do you think we're doing it right?" "I think you're doing the best you can in a tough situation. But can I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "Do you still love Michael?" The question caught Jessica off guard. She stayed silent for a long moment. "I don't know," she finally answered. "I know I loved him deeply. I know I still feel something for him, but I don't know if it's love or just missing what we had." "And him? Do you think he loves you?" "I think he loves the idea of having a complete family. I don't know if he loves me specifically." That same night, Jessica got her answer. Noah came down with a high fever. It was just a simple virus, but Jessica was frantic. Michael immediately cancelled all his commitments and stayed by her side at the hospital all night. "Everything will be fine," he said, holding her as they waited for the test results. "What if it's something serious?" Jessica cried. "It won't be. The doctor said it's just a virus. He'll be better in a few days." Michael held her hand the entire time, comforted her when she cried from worry, and didn't leave her side for a minute. When Noah got better and they returned home, Jessica realized something important. Michael had truly been there during the crisis. Not as someone fulfilling an obligation, but as a genuinely concerned father and husband. "Thank you," she said, as they tucked Noah into bed. "For what?" "For staying. For being there when I needed you." "Where else would I be?" Michael asked, as if the answer were obvious. And in that moment, Jessica knew he had truly changed. The old Michael would have told her to handle it alone while he worked. The new Michael didn't think twice before dropping everything to be with his family. A few weeks later, Barbara returned to the mansion. But this time, she brought gifts for her grandchildren and greeted Jessica politely. "How are the boys?" she asked, making a visible effort to be kind. "They're good," Jessica answered cautiously. "Growing fast. Can I play with them for a bit?" Jessica looked at Michael, who nodded encouragingly. "Of course," she said. Barbara sat on the living room floor and began playing with the twins. It was strange to see her like that. She had always been so formal and distant. "They're smart," she remarked, watching Ethan put together a puzzle. "They are," Jessica agreed. "They love books too. Just like their father at their age," Barbara said, and for the first time there was warmth in her voice when speaking of her grandchildren. "Did Michael read a lot as a child?" "He always had a book in his hand. I used to worry he was too quiet, too introspective." It was the first real conversation they'd ever had. She wasn't friendly yet, but she was respectful. "Mrs. Wilson," Jessica said after a while, "can I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "Why did you hate me so much?" Barbara stopped playing and looked at her in surprise. "I didn't," she began, then stopped. "I didn't hate you, Jessica." "Then why did you do all that?" Barbara took a deep breath. "Because I was afraid," she admitted, "afraid of losing my son. But I never tried to take him away from you." "I know, but you represented change. When Michael married you for the first time in his life, he made an important decision without consulting me. That scared me." "Did you always control his life?" "Ever since his father left when Michael was 8. I was alone raising him, building the family business. I got used to making all the decisions. Jessica began to understand the family dynamic better. And when I came along, you felt like you were losing control. Exactly. And I reacted badly. Very badly. I almost destroyed my own son's family because of my selfishness. Mrs. Wilson, Jessica said softly, I never wanted to take Michael away from you. I just wanted him to learn how to divide his love between the family he was born into and the family he built with me. I know that now, Barbara said, tears in her eyes, and I deeply regret everything I did, especially the pain I caused those babies. She looked at the twins who were playing, oblivious to the adults' conversation. Can they forgive me? She asked. They don't even remember what happened, Jessica said. They're too young. But they can learn to love their grandma if she's a real grandma. And you? Can you forgive me? Jessica stayed silent for a moment. I can try, she finally said, for the boys, but it'll take time. I understand, and I'll work to earn that forgiveness. When Michael came home from work that afternoon, he found a scene he never imagined he'd see. His mother, his wife, and his children playing together in the living room, laughing at something Noah had done. Hi, he said cautiously, not wanting to ruin the moment. Hi, Daddy, the twins shouted, running to hug him. How was your day? He asked, looking between Jessica and Barbara. It was good, Jessica said with a small smile. Your mother brought new books for the boys. And Jessica taught me a song they like, Barbara added. Michael was moved seeing that scene. Finally, his family was coming together, instead of falling apart. That night, after Barbara had left and the twins were asleep, Michael and Jessica sat in the garden to talk. How was it really today? He asked. Better than I expected, Jessica admitted. Your mother is really trying to change. And you? How do you feel? Confused, she said honestly. For months I hated her for destroying our family. It's strange seeing her try to fix things. Do you think you can forgive her? I think I can learn to coexist with her civilly. Fully forgiving will take more time. What about me? Michael asked quietly. Do you think you can forgive me? Jessica looked him in the eyes. For 3 months, she'd avoided this conversation, but now she felt ready. Michael, I need to tell you some things, she said, and I need you to listen without interrupting. I'm listening. When you let your mother kick me out of the house, you didn't just break my heart. You broke my trust in you, in our family, in our love. I thought you knew me well enough to understand I'd never marry for money. Michael lowered his head but said nothing. For 3 weeks I cried every night thinking about the boys, wondering how you could believe I didn't love them enough to fight for them. How could you believe I was capable of abandoning them? Jessica, let me finish, she said, raising her hand. But these past few weeks, watching you with the boys, seeing how you've truly changed, I started to understand some things. What things? That you didn't leave me out of cruelty. You left me out of weakness. Because you never learned to make hard decisions on your own. Because you always let other people think for you. It's true, admitted Michael. And I also realized the man standing here now is different from the one who sent me away. You've learned to be a real father. You've learned to stand up to your mother. You've learned to choose your family. I learned I can't live without you, said Michael, emotional. But that doesn't erase what happened, Jessica continued. It doesn't erase the nights I spent awake crying or the boys suffering. It doesn't erase the fact that you doubted my love. I know, and I'll carry that guilt forever. I don't want you to carry guilt, Jessica said softly. I want you to carry lessons. I want to be sure you'll never let anyone destroy our family again. Never again, Michael promised. I swear on everything sacred. Michael, Jessica said, taking a deep breath. I forgive you. He looked at her with surprise and hope. Really? Really? Because I've seen you've truly changed. Because I've seen you fighting for our family, and because our children need parents who love each other, not parents who are always fighting. What about us? Michael asked hesitantly. What about our marriage? I want to try again, Jessica said, tears in her eyes, but slowly. Rebuilding everything from scratch, learning to trust each other again. I want that more than anything, Michael said, moving closer. Then let's do it right this time, Jessica said. Let's get married for real, at the courthouse. Let's buy our own home, far from anyone's influence. Let's raise our children together as a real family. Yes, Michael said, taking her hands. Let's do all of that. And for the first time in months, they kissed. It wasn't a kiss of wild passion, but one of new beginnings, of promise, of hope. 6 months later, in a simple but emotional ceremony, Michael and Jessica officially married. The twins were ring bearers, Emily was the maid of honor, and even Barbara was there crying with emotion. They moved into a smaller but cozy home in a quiet neighborhood of New York City. Michael kept working, but with flexible hours that let him be present in his children's lives. Jessica returned to teaching and also opened a small tutoring center. Emily remained part of the family, no longer as an employee but as a beloved aunt the boys adored. The promise of the mansion was never brought up again. Jessica didn't want anything she hadn't earned herself. Mrs. Wilson retired and practically became the twins' grandmother, visiting every week and teaching them family recipes. Barbara, little by little, learned to be a real grandmother. It was still hard for her not to try to control everything, but she made a genuine effort to respect her son and daughter-in-law's decisions. Ethan and Noah grew up in a home full of love, where their father and mother were truly present. They never knew exactly what had happened when they were little, but they grew up knowing they were deeply loved. 3 years later, on a quiet evening, Michael and Jessica were putting the twins to bed when Ethan asked, "Daddy, why did we move houses?" Michael and Jessica exchanged a glance. "Because Daddy and Mommy wanted a home where we could be a real family," Jessica answered. "And are you happy here?" Noah asked. "Very happy," Michael said, hugging both boys, "because we have everything we need, each other." "And Aunt Emily too," added Ethan. "And Aunt Emily too," agreed Jessica, laughing. When the boys finally fell asleep, Michael and Jessica sat in the living room of their new home. It was much smaller than the mansion, but infinitely cozier. "Do you regret anything?" Michael asked. "Forgiving you," Jessica replied. "Never." "Not keeping the mansion?" "Never," she repeated. "That house had too many ghosts. This one is ours, built with real love." "I love you," Michael said, pulling her close. "I love you too," Jessica answered. "And I love the man you've become." That night, as they slept embraced in their small but love-filled home, they knew they had found something far more precious than any mansion. A true family, built on solid foundations of love, respect, and real presence. The twins slept soundly all night, peaceful and secure, knowing their father and mother were there, that they would always be there, and that they would never again cry from longing or abandonment. The end. Now, tell me what you thought of this story of overcoming and forgiveness. Do you believe Michael truly changed, or do you think Jessica should have been tougher on him? And Barbara, do you think people can really change, or will she interfere again? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories like this one.